Okay, so now we get into the Jericho Bone. Okay, now I remember when James was like, "Yeah, I don't like horror movies. Like I don't like horror. Like if I see a woman in danger, I get upset. It's like, oh, come on, dude." But like a lot of the stuff he was writing, and someone who's not a horror fan, was extremely horrific. Whether it was historical fiction or it was the science fiction sagas he was doing. And then finally, he just went out and was inspired to write a historical horror story. And he ended up writing scenes that were as horrific as anything you read from, let's say, Clive Barker or later on Edward Lee. There's scenes in this that actually made me cringe as a longtime horror fan. The Jericho Bone. Let's go into this. What inspired? I know there's different inspirations for this, but I want you to go through them.
It's two things that came together. Arik was trying to promote my writing when he was still in the comic end of the business before he became like the toy guy.
Yeah, well, that's where the money is.
Right. You know, so he went in the right direction. But he took me to one of these comic things, and I met a guy, very nice guy named Jason Lennox, who had done. This was published in numerous different editions and everything, trying to sell it. It never sold. We sold maybe a couple of these things over 10 years. Jason Lennox did this Crusader zombie artwork. I saw that. I said, Jason, could I use that as the cover of a book? Because this could have been a Crusader from the crusade that went into Egypt, that faltered south of Dalmatia in Shrove Tuesday's battle, where the French king got killed and everything, I think, because he's the Crusader that's still in mail. And I know that there was an actual cannibal apocalypse in the year 1201 in Egypt.
Right, that was the other inspiration, was an actual book that you read about that.
Right, which it was in Rhea Tannehill's Flesh and Blood, A History of the Cannibal Complex, published by Dorset, because she couldn't get it published. She's an excellent historian. She wrote Food and History and Sex and History.
Oh.
But neither one of those publishers would touch the history of cannibalism, which she stumbled upon doing all her food research.
Right.
And she found the journal of a doctor named Abd al-Latif, which she had translated. And he was a doctor visiting in Cairo. He was not Egyptian. And this is when Cairo's only a couple hundred years old.
Mm.
Okay.
It's ruled by the Mamluks at that time.
Yes. And and there was a crusade down the Red Sea from the Sinai Peninsula where just 100 Christian knights rampaged through the center of, the world of Islam. There were, these men were viewed as horrific invaders, almost alien invaders, by people in deeper countries. And what went on in Egypt a few years before the crusade was very nasty. So I thought I would put the two together. Now, the most horrific scenes in here, I didn't make them up. They were just from Abd al-Latif's diary, which only ran to like 24 pages or something like that, but it's very concise. I had to flesh them out. Now, right. They're selling babies in jars from behind the counter, and he finds this out. 3 different doctor friends of his were invited to houses to treat people. And it was, the poor were digging up graves, and that's how they were getting their food. Rich people were buying babies, abducting people, and even inviting doctors to their houses in order to kill them and eat them.
Right. Well, like I said, there's a major famine in Egypt, so cannibalism is being resorted to.
Right. So I had 4 different protagonists. There was Abd al-Latif, the real one. There's Uncle Ibis as his Ethiopian Christian slave bodyguard, who was my favorite character in there. There was the little Jewish kid that was the donkey drover.
Right.
He was based on an actual donkey drover and had the same name as a donkey drover in a travel book written for children by a woman in 1904 when she went to Cairo. Okay, I read what Egyptian fiction short stories I could find. I read a collection of Egyptian short stories, and his name was Yusuf, was the name of the author. I needed more of an action character with more agency to continue this, because it seemed like it was going to be something that was going to sell. I originally just wrote Fruit of the Deceiver.
I remember that.
Okay, that was a novelette. Now, to do 40 Hands of Night, I needed more of an action character that would be kind of like a sawed-off Conan, and I figured this would be a man that Abd al-Latif alluded to, that was a man you could count on, who was a traveler during this famine from Alexandria. So I made him a person of dubious racial ancestry that did things to obscure his racial and ethnic identity, and would, by turns, he hated Turks, but he would pass himself off as a Berber, but he wasn't a Berber. He was really a mixed-race person from Navarre, from the north of Spain, and had alternately been an adventurer bandit. He's like a little Conan. So the 40 Hands of Night, he and the Donkey Boy become bigger characters. They fill in more. And the Piper, this was a character that I had made up for something that you and I wrote together.
Oh, yeah, Hemivore, right.
Which would be a gardener, an alien from outer space,
right.
okay, that's a biologist that's shipwrecked on planet Earth, and he has to use like plant life forms and everything to try to keep propagating himself. So the novel that features his wife, who would be the astrophysicist, is Ire and Ice.
Okay. I remember that.
She's the evil witch. So they get separated when their spacecraft enters.
Right.
He's the biologist husband, and he ends up shipwrecked in Africa.
So the supernatural horror really has an extraterrestrial origin, sort of Lovecraftian, you could say. And also, you base that character off of another...
a real vampire.
Right, that was in the classic French Revolution in Saint Domingo by Lothrop Stoddard.
Right, Janot.
Janot. Right.
So this is the Secret Gardener, the Piper. Tales of the Secret Gardener, all those associated tales, so everything that's in here, I wrote extra material to link the novelette and the novella together and make this bigger. All of the associated tales are in an omnibus ebook thing on our site. That's I think it's called Tales of the Secret Gardener, something like that. That's also got the Janot stuff in it from Hemivore. There was Drink Deep of Night. So that combines Iron Ice, Drink Deep of Night, and this. So
that villain was really in a lot of the, and he of course spanned all different time periods.
And the thing is I ended up almost. It kind of relieved the horror. Like the horrific alien stuff, I couldn't make it any worse than when I fleshed out Abd al-Latif's accounts. That was worse than anything I could have done about like an alien thing. And there was a sequel to this that I wrote titled Yusuf of the Dusk, where I continued the Yusuf character. My editor liked the Yusuf character. And so Yusuf of the Dusk is like one of the first fiction books that she edited and published. And this is actually edited by a former girlfriend of mine who taught French, Spanish, and English.
Okay.
And, so she's credited in here. And I gave her a couple of books for her to publish and make money off of, and payment for her doing this. And my niece, who has published about 24 of my books and who published and did the graphics for Menthol Rampage. She came up with this African artwork based on the Janot character when she found African papers.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So I feel pretty good about this. It was it ended up in an Arabian Terror Tale.
Yeah.
It didn't sell. As that, so we did it, beefed it up, made it to Jericho. Didn't sell. People, people don't like to read stuff that's got a main character that's a Muslim.
Yeah,
that's. I mean, that's right. I understand that.
I used to like it.
I read the Quran 3 times so I could do some justice to Abdul Latif and his culture.
I thought it was great. I mean, that jerk that inspired that other book will probably not like this, but I actually liked it. I liked that you had the Christian, the Jew, the crypto Jew, the slave woman, the different Muslims. You see the schisms. The Turks are like the Arabs hate the Turks who rule them. The scenes with the kids with their eyes gouged out, grabbing the dude who's trying to enslave them. The one where he's floating on the river with the petals. They look like petals, but they're really human corpses that are shaped like a lotus. The scene with the dogs. Just the horrible ways that the people, some of the greatest evil acts in this are done by humans, like you said. They're done by, you're reading it from actual history, from that cannibal apocalypse that happened in the 12th century. So I think, I know it's hard to find an audience like that, but this was really amazing. As someone who's not a horror guy, you wrote some really good stuff in there. So.
At the end of this, there's a scene set in the library, okay? And that librarian, that is handing out the document that has the story of what happened in Egypt was the lady I was that I lived with for 8 years, who was a librarian, And as I like putting her into different stories that I do. That's the lady that I wrote Fat Girl Dancing for. She wanted me to write a story about a pretty fat blonde chick just running people over with a car because she was mad at the world.
It's like every other white woman.
So I was careful in a horror, because this was a horror story, about how I put in patterned characters that were patterned after.
Like I said, I had gone over this in a video going back a couple of Halloweens ago, another lifetime ago.
This book was actually plugged by one of the biggest conservative Twitter guys back in 2019.
Ooh, how was that?
He was a huge name. This is a guy with a million people, and he was a conservative person, and he actually contacted Lynn Lockhart and said, "What book of James LaFon's would you like me to plug?" And she asked me. I said, "Well, it would be fiction, and I think this is the best big fiction I've done. This piece right here." And we did not sell one book.
Yes.
But it's a Christian conservative readership, so
I'm surprised. I'm surprised.
The Christian character in here is the slave of a Muslim, and they get along. They like each other.
Well, yeah, right. Well, I'm just trying to figure out who could that person be. Who cares? A conservative from 2019, they come and go. So
so it's and it might even have been from before 2019.
Yeah,
okay, but it was in that range. It might have been 2017 or 2018, but it was before the big thing that happened.
What happened? Okay. Wait, something happened the last couple of years?
Maybe it was some kind of cannibal apocalypse.
Something happened
in 2020. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's 17 years from now, the cannibal apocalypse. So you better lose weight, man. You're fat. You can't run. They're gonna eat your ass. You heard? All right.